My boyfriend said I was overreacting about his female friend, until I got a male friend of my own. Hi Reddit. I don't even know where to start. I've been lurking here for years, silently reading other people's relationship posts, always thinking, that'll never be me. But here I am, typing out something I never thought I'd need advice on. My boyfriend, Ethan, and I have been together for almost 3 years. We met during my last year of college. He was a year older, working in the same city. He was the kind of guy who made you feel seen, attentive, funny, and disarmingly confident. We clicked almost immediately, and I remember thinking, wow, this is what it's supposed to feel like. For most of our relationship, things were good. Like, genuinely good. We had our share of small arguments about chores or weekend plans, but nothing ever felt unmanageable. I thought we had a pretty healthy relationship until his friend Mia came into the picture. Ethan and Mia met at work around a year ago. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I'm not a jealous person by nature. He'd mention her casually, like, "Oh, Mia helped me with that client project." Or, "Mia's hilarious. She's the only one who makes team meetings bearable." It sounded harmless. I even encouraged him to invite her along when we did group hangouts with his coworkers. She was nice enough, confident, witty, the kind of woman who commands attention without trying. But over time, something in my gut started to shift. Ethan started bringing her up a lot. Like, a lot. Every story seemed to include her name somehow. He'd show me memes she sent him, talk about her weekend plans, even quote her jokes. I tried to laugh along, but part of me started wondering if he realized how often she came up. And then came the texting. He started getting messages from her late at night. Nothing explicitly flirty. At least, not at first, but way too personal for just coworkers. Things like, "Ugh, can't sleep again. Work brain won't turn off." Or, "You be proud, I finally tried that Thai place you mentioned." If I texted a male coworker like that, Ethan would lose it. I remember the night I brought it up. We were watching TV, and his phone kept lighting up on the couch. I saw Mia's name pop up. Again. I said, gently, "You talked to her a lot lately." He didn't even look up from the screen. "Yeah, she's been stressed. We just vent to each other." I tried to keep my voice calm. "Okay, but it feels like she texts you more than I do lately." He sighed, that long, exaggerated sigh people give when they think you're being ridiculous. "Babe, it's not that deep. You're overreacting. She's just a friend." That word, overreacting, hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't accused him of cheating, hadn't even told him to stop. I was just trying to express that something was making me uncomfortable. But from that moment on, he acted like I was the problem. He'd roll his eyes if I mentioned her. He'd say things like, "You're being insecure." Or, "Not everything's about you, you know." It wasn't just dismissive, it was belittling. So I stopped bringing her up. I told myself maybe I was being dramatic. I told myself that if he wanted to cheat, he would, and I couldn't control that. I told myself trust was supposed to mean letting things go. But my gut never really settled. It's strange how small things add up until suddenly the air between you feels heavy all the time. Ethan started spending more nights out, work drinks, networking, just decompressing with the team. Sometimes he wouldn't even text me until midnight. When I asked why he couldn't just let me know he'd be late, he'd say, "You always assume the worst." I wasn't assuming anything. I just missed him. Then I started noticing changes in how he talked to me. He was distracted, curt, always on his phone. He'd laugh at texts, and when I'd ask what was funny, he'd just say, "It's nothing." I wasn't dumb. I knew it was her. I told myself that if he really wanted to be with her, he would have left. I clung to that as proof that everything was fine, even when deep down, I knew something was off. Fast forward a few months. I started a new project at work, and one of the people on my team was this guy, Ryan. He was friendly, funny, in that easygoing way that makes everyone like him instantly. At first, we just talked about work, but after a few weeks, we started joking around, sending each other memes, talking about movies. It felt nice. Innocent. It wasn't flirty. Honestly, I think I just enjoyed having a friendship where I felt heard again. One night, I mentioned Ryan to Ethan casually, just like he used to talk about Mia. Ryan showed me this hilarious TikTok today. You'd love it. Ethan's face shifted immediately. Who's Ryan? A guy from work. A guy. He said it like I'd confessed to sleeping with him. I blinked. Yeah, a guy. You have female friends.
He scoffed.
That's different. I've known Mia for ages. You've known her for 9 months. So, what? Now you're keeping track? The hypocrisy was almost funny if it hadn't been so maddening. He spent months making me feel like a jealous psycho for asking about Mia, but the second I had a male friend, a completely harmless one, he lost his mind. It happened a week later. I'd been working late, and Ryan offered to walk me to my car since it was dark. Ethan happened to call me right then, and when I mentioned Ryan was with me, his tone changed immediately. You're with him right now? Yeah, he's just walking me to my car. Oh, so now you need him to protect you? It spiraled fast. By the time I got home, he was waiting for me, pacing the living room. He accused me of trying to make him jealous and playing games. I was shaking from anger, from disbelief, from exhaustion. Do you hear yourself?
I said.
You text me every night and tell me I'm overreacting, but I can't even have a friend? Because it's different, he shouted. You're doing this to prove a point. Maybe I am. I snapped back. Because the only way you take me seriously is when the situation's reversed. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Just stood there, jaw tight, eyes cold. You've changed, he finally said. You used to be sweet. Now you're petty. And that broke me in a way I didn't expect. Because I had changed, but not out of spite. Out of self-defense. I went to bed that night crying quietly while he scrolled through his phone beside me. The silence between us felt like a wall. I realized I wasn't even angry anymore. Just tired. Tired of explaining my feelings only to be told they didn't matter. Tired of being called insecure for expecting basic respect. Tired of fighting for a relationship that seemed to only work on his terms. Update. After that night, something inside me shifted. For months, I had been walking on eggshells, tiptoeing around Ethan's moods, biting back thoughts, brushing off my gut. But after the fight with Ryan as the catalyst, I realized I was exhausted from self-censoring. And more than that, I realized I had been minimizing things that had been bothering me for months, especially Mia. The first step toward regaining any self-respect was finding out the truth. It started innocuously enough. A coworker of Ethan's mentioned in passing that Ethan and Mia had gone on a late-night project meeting last month, the same week Ethan told me he was at a team dinner. At first, I froze. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe my coworker had the wrong date. Maybe it was innocent. But my gut told me otherwise. I did what I had avoided doing for months. I asked him directly. Ethan, did you and Mia go somewhere the week of the 12th? He froze. His usual confident, easygoing demeanor faltered. Yeah, just a project thing. By project thing, you mean drinks at a bar at 11 p.m.? He hesitated. Okay, yeah, drinks, but it wasn't anything. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stared at him. That's when I realized something important. The truth isn't always about the act itself. It's about how much someone respects your boundaries. Ethan knew it made me uncomfortable. And yet he still went. Not because it was work-related, but because my discomfort didn't matter to him enough to stop. That was my turning point. I didn't have to imagine cheating or betrayal to feel disregarded. I could see it plainly in his choices. After that, I started treating Ethan's reactions differently. I didn't want to escalate fights. I wanted to protect myself. When he brought up Ryan again, with that old accusatory tone, I felt a spark of amusement rather than guilt. Are you really worried about Ryan now? I asked lightly, smiling a little. You've been fine with Mia for months. Should I start keeping track of how often you see her? His jaw tightened. That's not the same. Oh, it's totally the same, I said, my voice calm but firm. If you don't want me talking to Ryan, maybe you shouldn't be texting Mia at midnight. For the first time, I said something like that without shaking, without thinking I'd ruined everything. I wasn't trying to be cruel, I was being honest. And the more I practiced this, standing firm, speaking my truth, the less I cared about his opinions or accusations. Over the next few weeks, I noticed myself slipping into sarcasm as a way to protect my emotions and assert boundaries. When Ethan complained that Ryan had texted me a meme, I said, "Oh no, I'd better delete it before you get jealous. Can't have anyone having fun without your approval." When he rolled his eyes at me bringing up Mia, I smirked. "Oh right, I forgot, it's totally normal for you to hang out with her, but somehow Ryan walking me to my car is a crime against humanity." Got it. It wasn't mean-spirited, it was confidence wrapped in humor. And surprisingly, it worked. He had nothing to say. For the first time, the tension didn't feel like mine to fix. I started saying no more often, not aggressively, just firmly. I stopped canceling plans with friends because Ethan suddenly decided he had a problem with them. I stopped compromising my routines to avoid a fight. I also started actively enjoying Ryan's friendship in a way I hadn't allowed myself to enjoy anyone in months. We would grab coffee, exchange silly work memes, discuss movies, share frustrations about our bosses, normal, everyday friendship stuff. And I realized something profound. I had forgotten what it felt like to have a friend who sees me, really sees me, without judgment or manipulation. For the first time in a long time, I felt my energy coming back. I wasn't drained after every interaction. I wasn't constantly second-guessing my feelings. One evening, Ethan came home complaining about a minor work stressor. I listened politely, gave him advice, then excused myself to check my phone. A meme from Ryan popped up. Ethan noticed and muttered, "Really? Really?" I said, smiling. "I'm allowed friends, remember?"
He didn't argue. He didn't pout.
He didn't roll his eyes.
He just didn't say anything.
It wasn't a dramatic win. There were no fireworks, but inside, I felt like I had reclaimed a small piece of my dignity. Something unexpected happened next. My own self-respect began affecting how I viewed him. I realized I didn't have to tolerate being dismissed, belittled, or gaslit. I didn't have to justify my discomfort over Mia or over my friendships. And as I gained confidence, I started seeing Ethan more clearly. The charm, the easy laughter, the perfect boyfriend persona, it hadn't disappeared, but it no longer blinded me. Beneath it, I could see a man unwilling to acknowledge how his actions affected me. A man quick to dismiss feelings he found inconvenient. I didn't hate him, but I started letting go of the need to fix him or make him understand me. One Saturday, I went to a friend's birthday party with Ryan. Ethan was invited too, and for the first time in months, I didn't care if he noticed our conversations, our jokes, or our laughter. I was relaxed, genuinely laughing, teasing Ryan like I hadn't dared to do with Ethan present in months. Ethan glared a few times, muttering under his breath about how close we are. But I just smiled at Ryan's dumb joke, shrugged, and carried on. That night, I realized I didn't need him to approve of my friendships. I didn't need him to validate my feelings. I was finally prioritizing myself. Update. After I started reclaiming my space and standing up to Ethan, things began to shift in a way I hadn't anticipated. The first few weeks were exhilarating. I felt alive, more myself than I had in months. But of course, there's always a tipping point. It started subtly. I invited Ryan to a casual dinner with a few of my friends. Normally, I'd hesitate, worried about Ethan's reaction, worried about sounding too close to a male friend.
But now?
I didn't. I simply texted Ryan, "Hey, want to join us Friday night?" Ethan saw the text. He asked casually, "Ryan's coming to dinner?" I shrugged.
Yep.
"You don't have to come if it bothers you." That line was deliberate, calm, simple, and firm. And for the first time in the relationship, I wasn't apologizing for it. He didn't explode, at least not immediately. But I could feel the tension in the air. It was a different tension now, not me trying to navigate his moods, but him realizing he had no control. The first confrontation after that dinner invitation came a few days later. Ethan had been unusually quiet all afternoon, scrolling on his phone, tapping his fingers on the table. Finally, he looked up. "You don't need to spend so much time with Ryan." I smiled, deliberately slow, like I was savoring the moment. "You don't need to spend time with Mia either, but you do." He froze for a moment, then said, That's not fair. Fair. I laughed softly. Let's talk about fairness. You dismiss my feelings about Mia for months, make me feel like I'm overreacting, and suddenly it's a problem when I enjoy a friendship? The conversation could have escalated. Normally, I would have panicked, caved, or apologized. But now I felt different. I had a shield I didn't have before, my own clarity and self-respect.
I,
I just don't like it, he muttered. And I don't like being dismissed, I said. And that was that. He had no answer. Over the next few weeks, I doubled down on my independence. I went out with friends, spent weekends on hobbies I had neglected, and leaned into Ryan's friendship, which had evolved into a steady, comfortable camaraderie. There was no romantic tension, just trust, laughter, and shared interests. It wasn't about making him jealous or proving a point. It was about living my life on my terms. The changes in me were subtle but profound. I laughed louder. I spoke more freely. I stopped preemptively apologizing. I realized I didn't need Ethan's validation to feel worthy or secure.
and he noticed.
One evening, Ethan tried to initiate a serious talk. He said he wanted to fix things and make this right. I listened politely at first, but as he went on, I noticed the pattern. Every "I'm sorry" or "I didn't mean to" was immediately followed by an attempt to control or manipulate. If you stopped seeing Ryan so much, I'd feel better. I just want us to be close again. I realized something important. The problem wasn't the distance between us. The problem had always been his unwillingness to respect my boundaries. Ethan, I said calmly, almost kindly, I don't need you to feel better about my friendships. I don't need you to approve of my time or my life. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to live mine. His face shifted, confusion, frustration, a flicker of realization. For the first time, I felt no guilt about my independence. No hesitation. No fear that asserting myself would break us. Because the truth was, the break had been happening for months, in the subtle dismissal, the belittling, the lack of empathy. By now, my sarcasm had become almost a reflex. Ethan would complain about something minor, a text I sent, a laugh I shared, and I'd respond with calm, cutting humor. Wow, thanks for keeping score. Should I get a notepad so you can track all my interactions?
Or,
Oh, I forgot. Only you were allowed to have fun with friends. Got it, noted, signed, sealed. Each sarcastic remark wasn't meant to hurt him. It was a boundary marker, a way to say, I see you, I hear you, but I don't have to bend anymore. And with each remark, I felt lighter, more confident, stronger. One night, after a particularly tense argument about Ethan's late-night text to Mia, I went into the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and did something I hadn't done in years. I truly appreciated my reflection. Not my hair, not my clothes, myself. I realized I had spent so much of my adult life bending to the expectations and comfort of others that I had forgotten what it felt like to stand firm in my own truth. I wasn't perfect. I had fears and doubts. But I had agency, and that was powerful. For the first time, I could see myself as someone worthy of respect, not just from Ethan, but from myself. Update. By the time I finally decided to leave Ethan, I wasn't panicked. I wasn't frantic. I wasn't even trembling with fear that I was making a mistake. I was resolute, and for the first time in months, I felt calm about my decision. It all started on a Friday evening. Ethan had come home late, smelling faintly of Mia's perfume, smiling that infuriatingly oblivious smile that once made my heart flutter. I had had enough. I waited until he was settled on the couch, phone in hand, before I spoke. Ethan, we need to talk. Seriously. He looked up, a flicker of amusement on his face. Talk? About what? About us. About everything. He leaned back, stretching his arms. You're dramatic tonight.
no.
I'm clear. I'm done with the games. I'm done being dismissed. I'm done pretending everything is okay when it's not. I can't do this anymore. I could see confusion cross his face, followed by irritation. What are you talking about? We're fine. I mean, come on, we fight like everyone else. Stop being so.
No, Ethan. Stop. Don't try to gaslight me.
I've been patient, forgiving, explaining myself, compromising. And you've kept going behind my back, disregarding my feelings, acting like I'm overreacting.
That ends now.
I'm leaving. He froze, like I had hit him with something physical. Leaving? Where? For how long? Leaving you.
Permanently.
I don't need permission, Ethan. I'm done. As expected, the moment I pulled away, Ethan became frantic. The next few days were a blur of messages, missed calls, and attempts to corner me in public places. Texts ranged from desperate. Please, just talk to me. I'll explain everything.
Don't do this.
To manipulative. I can change. Just give me one more chance. I ignored most. I responded to none. My phone no longer dictated my emotional state. I had my own boundaries, and I wasn't bending them anymore. When he appeared unexpectedly at my favorite coffee shop, my first instinct was to keep walking. But then I thought, I owe him a face-to-face. Not to reconcile, not to justify myself, but to close the chapter with dignity. I agreed to meet him at the coffee shop, but I made the rules clear. I'll talk, Ethan, but only because you said you just need to talk. That's it. He smiled, relieved, like he had won. But I was calm, detached. I ordered my coffee, slid into the seat across from him, and waited. I just need to explain, that's all. You don't understand. I nodded politely, then, deliberately, pulled out my headphones, put them on, and started playing music at a low volume. He blinked, incredulous. Wait, are you listening to music? We're talking. I shrugged casually.
Yes.
Because this is exactly how I felt when you dismissed everything about Mia. All my concerns, my questions, my feelings, you just ignored me.
Pretended they didn't exist.
This is exactly what it felt like.
His jaw tightened.
You can't just. I held up a hand.
No, Ethan.
I can. And I will. You didn't respect me then. I'm showing you now how it feels. And it's not up for debate. You don't get to lecture me while I'm standing up for myself. I'm done being manipulated, minimized, or made to feel small. He leaned forward, desperate, his voice louder now. This is insane. You're overreacting. I never meant to hurt you. Please listen. I heard you months ago. I chose to ignore the panic, the anger, the worry, the little red flags. I gave you chances. And you didn't change.
So no, Ethan.
I'm not listening now. I'm not begging. I'm walking away. You're really doing this? After everything we've been through? I smiled faintly, a mix of sadness and clarity.
Yes.
I'm doing this because I've realized that everything we've been through doesn't matter if my feelings never mattered to you. I've grown stronger while you've stayed the same. And I deserve someone who respects me, not someone who keeps testing my patience and loyalty while dismissing my concerns. He fell silent. For the first time in months, there was no manipulation, no deflection, no argument, just stunned realization. I stood up slowly, keeping my composure, music still playing. Goodbye, Ethan. I hope one day you understand what you did, not for me, but for yourself. And I walked out of the coffee shop. Not running, not panicked, just walking confident, free. The texts continued for a few more days, fading gradually from desperate to resentful. Why won't you answer? We can fix this. You're making a mistake. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My peace, my autonomy, my dignity, they were worth more than any conversation he demanded. And for the first time in years, I felt truly unshackled. I started spending my energy on myself, my friends, my passions, and the life I wanted to build. A life where my voice mattered, my boundaries were honored, and I didn't have to shrink to make someone else comfortable. It wasn't easy. The memories, the habits, the comfort of knowing someone would always be there, they tugged at me. But they were not worth sacrificing my self-respect. I learned something crucial. Standing up for yourself isn't just about defending your rights. It's about valuing yourself enough to walk away when respect is no longer mutual. And in that lesson, I found freedom. Weeks after leaving Ethan, life felt lighter than it had in years. Mornings weren't a race to please someone else. Evenings weren't spent tiptoeing around moods I had long since stopped understanding. I laughed more freely, spoke my mind without hesitation, and realized that being alone didn't mean being lonely. It meant being fully myself. Ryan remained a steady presence, not as a replacement for Ethan, but as a friend who respected my boundaries and my space. One evening, he introduced me to one of his friends, someone kind, funny, and genuinely attentive. We started hanging out more and slowly, effortlessly, it became more than friendship. I found myself smiling at the thought of someone who chose to be with me, who listened, who made me feel safe without controlling me. For the first time, love didn't feel complicated or exhausting. It felt like a choice, not a challenge. As for Ethan, I didn't hate him. I didn't think of him much anymore. He had been a chapter that taught me the most important lesson. My voice matters, my boundaries matter, and my life is mine to live. And now, with someone new by my side, I wasn't just free. I was happy. Truly happy.